Hello friends and welcome to the lecture. So friends, as we know that we are covering the parliament and basically these are the topics that we have scheduled for the discussion under this particular series. Okay. And if we talk about the topics that we have covered so far, so basically we have done with the introduction part, organization of parliament, the composition of two houses, system of elections to Lok Sabha, the duration of two houses, membership of parliament, presiding officers of parliament, leaders in parliament, the sessions of parliament, devices of parliamentary proceedings, legislative procedure in parliament, joint sitting of two houses, the budget in parliament, the multifunction role of parliament. Okay. There is a slight mistake. Basically, budget in parliament is a topic that on which we have been discussing. And the topics that are remaining is the multifunction role of parliament, ineffectiveness of parliamentary control, the position of Rajya Sabha, the parliamentary privileges, and the sovereignty of parliament. Okay. So basically, we can say that this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. All right. So let's start from where we had left in the previous lecture. I hope that you have revised the previous lecture in the value. Okay. Before, if you are not doing this, then the things would be compiled up for you, and then you will face the difficulty in dealing with the things properly. So now we are going to see the vote of credit. Okay. So if we talk about it, it is granted for meeting an unexpected demand upon the resources of India. Okay. When on account of the magnitude or the indefinite character of the service, the demand cannot be stated with the details ordinarily given in the budget. Okay. So like we are discussing upon the extraordinary conditions. Okay. In the previous lecture also we had discussed the several types. Now we are continuing with the same thing. Okay. And what is this? Like if we talk about the budget, general budget, okay, or the annual financial statement. So basically that contains the ordinary expenditure and the ordinary revenue. Okay. It means that whatsoever things are going normal, that's are generally mentioned in the budget. But there is a golden thing that we had discussed many a times. The things are not static, but they are dynamic. Okay. It means no one could predict the future. So that's why the same thing happens in the nation also. Like the budget which has been presented to the parliament. The budget has been prepared as per the situations. Okay. Still, there is some room, like might be the situations would be out of control. And you can say there would be some unexpected situations. All right. So because of such situations, some conditions, there are some extraordinary provisions also. And one of them is vote of credit. So now if we talk about for which the vote of credit issued, so we can say that basically it is granted for meeting an unexpected demand upon the resources of India. It means that if we talk about the resources of India and there is some unexpected demand, okay, so to meet that particular thing, there would be a vote of credit. When on account of the magnitude or the indefinite character of the service, the demand cannot be stated with the details ordinarily given in the budget. So here you can say that here is already a word mentioned here, which is the unexpected demand. It means that it is unseen. No one had expected it. And if the sudden situation arises and the situation demanded it from the resources of India, okay, and the situation's magnitude and the indefinite character of the service that is involved in it, we are unaware about it. So basically, so that this demand cannot be stated with the ordinary debates which are given in the budget. Hence, it's like a blank check given to the executive by the Lok Sabha. It means that no amount, no tenure mentioned on it. It's totally depend upon the arrival of the situation. So that's why it is a blank check. The executive could withdraw the amount from it. Okay, and this is granted by the Lok Sabha. All right, but there must be several conditions which should match with it, like the unexpected demand, which is chargeable on resources of India, and the magnitude of indifferent character of the services are there. After this, the another thing that we could see here is the exceptional grant. What is this meaning of? It is granted for a special purpose and forms no part of the current service of any financial year. Okay, it means that this particular thing for which the grant has been made, they do not having any relevancy for the current service of any financial year. But because of some special purpose that arise due to the dynamic situations, this is made. Okay. Thereafter, next is the token grant. Okay. So what is token grant? So we can say it is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by the reappropriation. It means that suppose first the appropriation was made, okay, but still the demands of the funds that should be given, that funds are inappropriate to meet the expenditure on the new service, okay, and we know no amendment could be done in the appropriation once it is presented and voted. So that's why to meet the demand and to allot the other funds, there would be a provision of reappropriation. Okay. Demand for the grant of a token sum of ₹1 is submitted to the vote of the Lok Sabha, and if assented, funds are available. Okay. It means that this token grant would be submitted for the voting Lok Sabha, and if the Lok Sabha passed, then the funds would be available for that particular thing. Okay. And if we talk about the reappropriation, so reappropriation involves transfer of funds from one head to another. Okay, does not involve any additional expenditure. Okay, and supplementary, additional access and exceptional grants and vote of credit are regulated by the same procedure which is applicable in the case of regulatory budget. Okay, so there is no separate provisions for that. After this, now we are going to talk about the funds, because we have talked about the expenditure the government is going to make. So from where the money would come to the government to make such expenditures, to spend the money in the economy, from where the things would become. So these things would become from the funds. All right. The funds and the reserves that the government of India holds. So if we talk about it, so the Constitution of India basically having the three kinds of funds for the central government. Okay. These funds are, first is the Consolidated Fund of India. This having the Article 266, sorry. Second is Public Account of India, Article 266. And then the Contingency Fund of India, Article 267. All right. So basically, these are the funds. Okay. And here is one thing that you must keep in your mind that might be you get confused that these two funds are different, but their articles are same. Consolidated Fund of India, Article 266. Public Account of India, 266. So basically, you will assume that the same article provides for the two funds. That is half true. Why? Because yes, Article 266 provides for the Consolidated Fund of India and the Public Account of India, but their part is different. It is from first part. It is from second part. Okay. So Article 266 first provides for the Consolidated Fund of India. Article 266 seconds provides for the Public Account of India, and Article 267 provides for the Contingency Fund of India. Okay. So now let's have a talk on the Consolidated Fund of India. The first thing. So basically, it is a fund to which all receipts are credited and all payments are debited. Like in the previous lecture also, I had reminded you, the Consolidated Fund of India is like a bank account of the government. Why I'm saying this? Why I'm saying the bank account? Because like the bank account, all the debits happens from here, all the credits happens in here. All right. whatsoever money will go out, or you can say whatsoever money the government will withdraw, that would be debited on the Constituent Fund of India. Whatsoever money the government will earn, that money will be credited in the Constituent Fund of India. Okay, so two situations are there. Credited and debited both would be happen from the same fund, that is Consolidated Fund of India. In other words, we can say all revenues received by the government of India, okay, all loans raised by the government by issuing of the by issue of treasury bills, loans, or ways of mean of advances and all. Okay, because if you connect it with yourself, suppose you are holding the bank account of XYZ Bank. Okay, so if you are holding that particular account, if you have taken a loan from any organization, from bank, of national institution, from whatever, all right. So what will happen? That amount will be come in your bank account, and you are holding the bank account of XYZ, right? Similarly, if the government raises any loan by treasury bills, by loans, by advances, so whatsoever amount the government has raised, that amount will be credited in the Constituent Fund of India. Okay. After this, all the money received by the government in repayment of loans from the Constituent Fund of India. Okay, like the government also gives the loans to the international governments, okay, to the neighboring countries, and you can say to the state governments and all. So whatsoever repayment would be come to the government, that also goes to the Constituent Fund. So remember, whatsoever revenue the government will earn goes there. Whatsoever loans the government will raise goes here. Whatsoever repayment of loans the government will receive goes to here. Okay, so we can say all the legally authorized payments on behalf of the government of India are made out of this fund. Legally authorized means, what is the meaning of legally authorized? It means that proper act has been enacted, then only the money is being withdrawn. Okay. No money out of this fund can be appropriated, issued, or drawn except in accordance with the parliamentary law. It means that without the proper appropriation law, without the proper things, no money could be withdrawn from. Okay. No money could be withdrawn from. All right. After this, the public account of India. What is the meaning of this? So all other public money, other than those which are credited to the Constituent Fund of India. Okay. It means that suppose if the government had borrowed the money internally, and you can say if the government has earned the money from taxes and non-taxes revenue, so whatsoever money the government has received, and if the money credited to the Constituent Fund of India, so that money would be given to that fund. But the money which has not been credited to the Constituent Fund of India, that money received by or on behalf of the government of India shall be credited to the public account of India. Got it? This includes provident fund deposits, judiciary deposits, savings banks deposit, departmental deposits, remittances, and so on. Okay? Because these money come from the public, received from the public, but these are not the part of the Constituent Fund of India. Okay? And either received by the government or basically received on behalf of the government. Okay? This account is operated by the executive action. It means that payment can be made without parliamentary appropriation. Why executive actions? Because we know the parliament, or you can say the basic governance structure. The basic governance structure in this country having the three divisions: legislature, executive, and the judiciary. The legislature will make rules and regulations. The executive will implement it. Okay. And the judiciary will check out the constitutional validity and redressal the grievances. Okay. So basically, if we talk about the legislative action, So until or unless the legislation will pass the particular bill, okay, which is known as the appropriation bill, and the bill passed and enacted by the president, then this will be known as the appropriate act or the appropriation act. So until or unless the appropriation act would be there, no money could be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India. So we can say the Consolidated Fund of India having the both options, the legislative action and the executive action. But if we talk about the public account of India, so basically in the, you can say the topic of public account of India, this is only depend upon the executive action. So it means the legislative actions is absent. So that's why payment from the accounts can be made even without the parliamentary appropriation. Okay. And basically such payments are mostly of the banking transactions. Why? Because there is a record keeping of it, but not like the record keeping happens in the Consolidated Fund of India, because these savings would not be mentioned in the statute of the India. All right. After it, the next is the Contingency Fund of India. Okay. Next is the Contingency Fund of India. So this constitution authorized the parliament to establish a particular Contingency Fund of India, into which amounts determined by law are paid from time to time. Okay. It means that basically it is the responsibility of the government that they will pay the amount to the fund time to time. Okay. And this amount is basically determined by the law. Okay. And that's why, accordingly, because it's the responsibility of the parliament to establish the fund, so the parliament had enacted the Contingency Fund of India Act 1950. Okay. So there is a particular law, there is a particular act in respect of the Contingency Fund of India, and this is known as the Contingency Fund of India Act 1950. Okay. And if we talk about this fund, so this fund is basically placed at the disposal of the disposal of the president, and he can make advances out of it to meet any unforeseen expenditure pending. Okay, like we can say, the golden dialogue will repeat here. Things are not fixed, but they are dynamic. Okay, so there are chances that today's all things are right, but might be tomorrow the things would be difficult. Okay, so if there is any difficult situation, there is any needy situation, there is any you can say demand of the time, due to which then unforeseen expenditure arises. It means that the expenditure was not planned, the expenditure was not mentioned, and even there was no idea about that particular expenditure. So if any kind of this expenditure arises, then basically the president could make the advances of it and grant for the relief process. Okay. And this is basically authorized by the parliament under the Contingency Fund of India Act in 1950. The fund is held by the finance secretary on the behalf of the president. Okay. Like the Public Account of India, it is also operated by the executive action. It means that no appropriation bill is required. Why? Because the presenting of the appropriation bill, the discussing on it, the examination process, then voting and all, these all are the time-taking process. So these things could be afforded during the ordinary sessions. But if there is any unforeseen expenditure, then it's quite obvious that things could not be addressable properly. All right. In India, Indian political administration system, the parliament occupies a central position and has a multifunctional role. All right. Okay, so now we have started the new topic, that is the multifunctional role of parliament, and we have covered the budget. Okay. So if we talk about India, so Indian political administrative system, in it, the parliament occupies a central position and has a multifunctional role. Okay. It basically enjoys the extensive powers and performs a variety of functions towards the fulfillment of its constitutionally expected roles. All right. And if we divide the Powers and functions of the parliament. So these are the legislative powers and the functions, executive powers and the functions, financial powers and the functions. Okay, here most of you, and you can say most of the students which I have seen, okay, they got confused in it. Like, they generally got confused between the division of the government and the powers of the government. Why I'm saying this? Because if we talk about the division of the government, so the government or governance having the three divisions: legislative divisions, executive division, judiciary division. Okay, legislature will make the rules and regulations, executive will implement the rules and regulations, judiciary will look after the constitutional validity of rules and regulations. Okay, if we talk about the powers and functions, okay, of the parliament, then basically, and you can say of the government, so these are also in the three heads: legislative powers and functions, executive powers and functions, financial powers and functions. Judiciary will not, you can say, included here. Why? Because judiciary has been separated from the government. Okay, so that the fairness in the judicial operations and the independence of the judiciary could be ensured. All right, so please do not get confused in it. Okay, so here we have seen the powers and the functions of the parliament has been divided in the following heads, like the legislative powers and the functions, like the executive powers and the functions, like the financial powers and the functions. So let's discuss them. And even after this, there are certain others like the constitutional powers and functions, judicial powers and functions, but not like that, electoral powers and functions, and the other powers and functions. Okay, so total there are 7 powers and functions of the parliament. Okay, so let's discuss them one by one. The first thing that we could see here is the legislative powers and functions. This is the first one. So the primary function of the parliament is to make laws for the governance of the country. Okay, because if we talk about the parliament, if we talk about the constitution, if we talk about the things, so the constitution only provides for the provisions. To implement these provisions for the betterment of the nation, there requires the rules and regulations and particular laws. And which organization is responsible for it? So the Parliament of India is responsible for it. Okay, so we can say it is the responsibility of the Parliament that they will make the laws for the governance of the country, and these laws will contain the constitutional provisions. All right. So if we talk about it, so we know that it has exclusive powers to make the laws on the subjects which were enumerated in the Union list. Okay. Remember, the list system was basically first introduced in the Government of India Act 1935. All right, and there were 3, or you can say there were 2 lists basically, mainly federal list and the provincial list. Federal list for the central government, provincial list for the respective provinces government. So here, after independence, we had replaced the word federal with the union, and that's why here now we have the union list, not the federal list. Okay, so if we talk about the parliament's powers, so parliament having the exclusive powers to make the laws. It means apart from parliament, no one could make the laws on this, on the subjects which are enumerated in the union list. And if we talk about the union list elements, so basically the union list right now having the 98 subjects. Originally, these were 97 subjects. Okay. And on the residuary subjects, that is subjects not enumerated in any of the 3 lists. Like we have 3 lists nowadays: union list, state list, and the concurrent list. On union list, only the parliament can make the powers. On state list, the states make the rules and regulations, except the 5 cases that we have already discussed in the salient features. Thereafter comes the concurrent list. The concurrent list is the list on which both the state and the parliament could make the laws in the coordination. Residuary subjects, what are these? So these are 2 subjects which are not mentioned in any other 3 lists. They are not mentioned in the union list, not mentioned in the state list, not mentioned in the concurrent list. Only the parliament is allowed to make the. So basically, we can say that the parliament having the power, all right, to make the rules on the exclusive elements of the union list and on the residue subjects. Okay. So with regard to the concurrent list, which has had 52 subjects, okay, and originally there were 47 subjects. So the parliament has overriding powers. That is, the law of parliament prevails over the law of state legislature in case of a conflict between the two. It means that suppose if the parliament has made some law, the state has made some law, okay, and both of the laws and their provisions are contradictory to each other. It means that now the situation is between the parliament and the state legislature. All right. So basically, in such a cases, the parliament having the upper hand, or we can say that they are having the overriding powers. Okay. It means that if the conflict arises between the state laws and the central laws or the parliamentary laws, so the parliamentary laws will start prevails over the laws of state legislature. Okay. So this is the power, or this is the privilege granted to the parliament. Okay. After this, we can say the constitution also empowers the parliament to make laws on the subjects which are enumerated in the state list. Okay. Which are 59 subjects. Originally, these were 66. It means some of the subjects were removed from. And as I told you in the previous slide, that there are 5 abnormal or extraordinary situations in which the parliament will get the control over the state list also. And what are these? First, when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution to that effect, okay, it means that the Rajya Sabha, which is the house of the states, they authorizes the parliament to do it. Second, when a proclamation of national emergency is in operation, okay, then when 2 or more states make a joint request to the parliament, then when necessarily to give effect to the international agreement, treaties and conventions, the parliament could make the laws even on the state subjects. And last is when the president rule is in the operation in the state. Okay. So these are those 5 abnormal circumstances in which generally the parliament gets the control over the state legislature. And you can say they generally got the power to make the law even on the states. Okay. So these are the things. So today, basically in this lecture, we have finished till here. In the next lecture, we would continue from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the other lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture, and what we say thank you.